Welcome everyone, I am Darkstar and we are in Steam's Next Fest. That means there's lots of demos to try and I'm going to try a few of them on my channel. I hope you enjoy trying a few of them with me. Let's get right into it. First up we have Autopsy Simulator.
No, do not call me anymore. It's none of my business.
Okay, now, full disclosure, I recorded this video.
Lecture for the students now. Feeling completely broken.
I recorded this video last night, and I got a lot of great audio for it, but my video didn't record. Because when I started this game up, it messed with my video settings.
Steven. Since Alice died, Steven is the only person I trust.
So, yeah, it's a really cool game, and I'm excited to show it off.
Don't take my pills.
And play it again. So, the bathroom. Here we go.
Where are my meds?
And for this guy, what do I do with the pills? Do I just keep them in my pocket? Okay. I hope for this guy's sake, those meds help with his attitude.
Now I can go get the camera. This place is starting to look like a garbage dump rather than a storage room.
Get the video camera from the storage. There it is.
Well, I hope I won't forget to press the record button this time. Let's move on straight to our deceased.
Apparently this guy is a terrible autopsyist.
I'm wondering how the new tripod is going to work.
Well, I think you put the camera on it, dude.
Just frame it properly and...
There. Terrible angle.
This should be fine. November 21st, 1991. Time, 8:43 p.m. Recording for medical students from the University of Missouri. The autopsy is conducted by Jack Hanman. Ladies and gentlemen, it is always worth having a look at the files before conducting the autopsy. That is where we can find all kinds of clues to what could have potentially happened to the deceased. Well, who do we have here today? Mention the rookie mistakes. Oh yeah, that's right. That's my warrant to sensify you for a few issues. First, due to the fact that in the process of revealing and securing forensic traces, interference that changes the primary condition happens. The photographic documentation plays a huge role in the entire process of examination. Then, the body needs to be placed on its back on the autopsy table. The pathomorphologist stands on the left-hand side of the body. Third, very rarely but still, the cause of death remains unknown if all the tests come out negative. That's the so-called white autopsy. Now remember that it can also happen.
Pathomorphologist. Apparently that's what I'm called.
Found on the outskirts of a parking lot near a gas station, where he often begged and insistently offered to clean the windows of cars that were leaving the station. The body was found in a dry field drain. A frequent cause of traumatic deaths among the elderly is the various types of accidents, including traffic accidents or falling down the stairs. The body was spotted by a station worker during the morning shift. At first, he thought that someone had thrown rain boots and a coat in a nearby ditch. It took him a moment to recognize a human body laying on its back. Signs of libation could be found around the dead body. Empty bottles, traces of an inept attempt to start a fire, and a scattered makeshift blanket. The deceased is locally known as Old Toby, homeless and unemployed for at least a couple years. He had gotten into fights and had been bullied by the problematic youth of the town. He was that type of a man who never kept off alcohol, which caused him to be homeless. As a young man working in a suburban coal mine most of his life, he already abused alcohol, and as the time went by, he'd fall into addiction more. That's interesting. Although alcohol poisoning as a sole cause of death among the elderly people is relatively rare, different levels of alcohol poisoning happen among 1 in 4 deaths of elderly people, which may suggest that alcohol abuse is a significant issue in this age group. What is important to note, even though alcohol poisoning does not cause death, it does increase the risk of accidents and their following injuries.
Makes
The body
sense.
was found at 7 o'clock by Sheriff Matthew Thompson. White male, 76 kilograms, 5'8", age unknown. The deceased is a local homeless man named Toby Chambers. His son runs a hardware store. His wife ran away years ago. Local police have talked to residents, so we know more about the deceased. For example, that he loved drinking, and by no means was abstinent. Such clues
Yeah, we got
as
that.
to things that are worth keeping in mind during the autopsy.
I think he was a drinker. I'm getting that sense. Thank you, files.
The damn gloves.
I know where they are now. And this
Now
time it
we
won't
can
take me
work.
10 minutes to find
We're going
them.
to need the camera. It should be here somewhere.
Yes, it should be.
Must have left it in one of the drawers.
Correct. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry about how fast I move the camera. I literally have the mouse sensitivity all the way down, and it's still crazy. Just crazy
Let's
sensitive.
follow the procedure and prepare photo documentation. We must follow the top-down rule. Luckily, we don't have to take pictures of the clothes this time. We are only focusing on the body. Let's keep in mind it's all about the legibility.
Hate taking
not
pictures of the
perfect frame.
clothes.
Before we start searching for traces on the deceased's body, we have to take a main picture that goes in the files.
With a flick of the wrist.
Voila! Now we move on to the next step. Trace search.
Okay.
We're going to need better zoom here. And
Meow. Great. Next. The foot.
people affected by homelessness most often die from accidents, alcohol abuse, or they freeze to death. Unfortunately, both suicide and homicide are also quite common.
Which we can tell by looking at this foot.
Well, you don't have to stand close to be able to smell a strong odor of alcohol and other discharges. There's nothing left to say.
From his wrist.
Old Toby didn't spare himself.
It's the common alcohol discharge from the wrist evidence. Great
While
insight,
taking the
sir.
photos, some entries that could be potentially lethal caught my attention. Let's take a closer look using the magnifying glass.
Let the pathomorphology begin.
An old wound that hadn't healed properly. It must have been some kind of burn or other injury. Nevertheless, it has nothing to do with the potential cause of death.
Because I'm also psychic.
By the look of his feet, I assume Toby must have worn uncomfortable and dinky shoes for quite a while. However, such wounds have nothing to do with his death.
The wrist, where we know he was an
Frostbite marks
alcoholic.
all over the deceased's body. Although they are most visible on the tips of his fingers, they can be recognized by the very specific color of the skin. However, the hands tell us much more.
Like the alcohol discharge.
That's something interesting. While making photographic documentation, ecchymosis can be seen on the deceased man's head. The appearance indicates the intravital nature of the wound. We'll come back later to see if everything is all right with the brain. What do we have here?
Intravital ecchymosis is what I would have said.
An old wound that hadn't healed properly. It must have been some kind of burn or other injury. Nevertheless, it has nothing to do with the potential cause of death. By the look of his feet, I assume Toby must have worn uncomfortable and dinky
I already
shoes
heard
for quite
this.
a while. However, he could be freezing to death.
Great.
The condition of the head tells us it could have been a fatal accident. Yeah, the odor can be the result of alcohol intoxication.
Okay.
At this point, that's all I can do based on all traces on the body of the deceased. The inside should tell me much more. Let's move back to the body.
Cool.
Now let's check the level of muscle tension. This will allow us to establish time of death. Let's raise the deceased's hand.
Does he have a question? This is really hard to do with my mouse sensitivity right now. Okay.
And then let go. The stronger the rigor mortis gets, the greater the resistance from the muscles will be. As you can see, the hand falls loose. The rigor mortis has already subsided.
I didn't let go
Assume
yet.
that the time of death stated in the files is correct.
Should I let go now? I'm gonna do it. Okay.
Let's grab a scalpel.
Cool.
You can boldly cut with the scalpel. It won't.
Shing,
We
shing,
always start with the
shing.
neck and move
Boldly
down
cut.
towards the symphysis pube next. We separate the skin and prepare to remove the ribs. The adipose tissue has an intense yellow hue. As you've probably already guessed, we're going to need the scissors.
Otherwise known as the loppers.
After
Great
removing both
sound.
cartilage and bone tissues, we are actually interested in two things that you can see at the very first glance. The lack of organ congestion means that, although the deceased was cold, hypothermia wasn't the cause of death.
Cool. Magnifier. Okay. Examining. Look at all this cool stuff I'm looking at. Examination
Eliminate
complete.
Freezing is the cause of death.
Great. Sir, can I have this, please? Thank you. If you look at it from just the right angle, you can see London and France. Not this man's underpants, though. He's not wearing any.
The deceased
There we
smoked
go.
like a chimney. Let's take a closer look. We see widespread black and tarry deposits caused by smoking cigarettes. Despite the tragic condition of the lungs, they are not the cause of death. Now we need to go grab the syringe. At this point, we need to test the level of blood alcohol concentration of the deceased. We move on to collecting blood from the heart. 5 milliliters from the left ventricle should do it. Now, we prick the bladder and draw about 10 milliliters of fluid. We also collect the fluid from the deceased to determine the level of alcohol concentration in the vitreous humor.
It's all from the deceased.
Keep in mind that you have to set the right time and speed on both knobs before running the centrifuge. Our samples may break into pieces due to the centrifugal force if we set up the wrong coordinates.
That says centrifugal
I myself am
force,
terrible with numbers
which
because I suffer from dyscalculia,
is what it should be.
which is why I always keep the appropriate coordinates at hand.
Okay. So, whoops, 40 and 75. Oh,
Damn it. If something goes to shit, it's on the way. It's probably the blown fuses again. Hold up. I must have had a flashlight somewhere.
wouldn't it be awesome if this guy just got up off the table right now? It would make this game really interesting.
And I was hoping to clock out early today. What was that? Where did it go?
That one did kind of get me the first time. But yes, we have a cat in here. We run a great practice.
Yeah, it's It's definitely the fuses. Right goes first, left next. Voila! Where's that unbearable noise coming from?
That window was definitely closed a second
Pretty
ago.
sure I closed the window.
So I don't think that's how the cat got
That
in.
probably misses me already.
What's that sound? The other sound, not the radio.
All right, where were we? Oh yeah, the blood alcohol concentration.
Yep. So let's
Well,
see.
Everything is telling us that the BAC, blood alcohol concentration, is high, hence the smell we're getting from the deceased. Still, to be 100% sure, I have to send the samples to the lab. Unfortunately, I don't have the equipment to conduct a detailed analysis here.
Okay,
Now let's
take
get a
out the
closer look at
stomach. Now, if you hold this one up to your face correctly, you hear the ocean.
As expected, the stomach has no major external damage. In this case, further inspection is no use. We must cut him open.
Okay, once again, very difficult given my mouse sensitivity. But I have a... hello? Okay. A little bit of practice now. No, nope. Cool. Although that does look like a terrible job.
That's interesting. In addition to a large amount of gas and liquid, the stomach also contains small amounts of yellow-grayish food content resembling some kind of meat. Either our deceased hadn't eaten in days, or some of the bulk of his stomach had found a way out. Oh, it couldn't have been suffocation, could it? Now we need to focus on the cardiovascular system, especially the heart. We take the organ and look it up and down, carefully.
Cool, cool. I believe this is a heart. I had it for a second. Come on, where is it?
At first glance,
there we go.
The heart looks fine. The pulmonary trunk and aorta seem to be in good condition. There are no pathological changes that have contributed to our Toby's death. Well, once we've got the body ticked off, we can move on to the head.
All right, let's just chuck that. Wait, can I do I have to move? Take this off.
Let's take the autopsy saw to cut through the skull to cleave it in two. Remember, the skull, not the saw.
How am I gonna cleave this saw
Halfway.
in two? That doesn't make any
Start
sense.
dissecting the brain from the occipital lobe. In this way, the brain's dura mater is slowly revealing itself.
It was a wild little circular motion I had there. All right, let's stare at the brain a while. All these organs come out so nicely.
After the basic examination, we can see that the cerebral gyri in both brain hemispheres are symmetric and the bumps between them are clear.
Okay, but he has a glow stick in his brain, so that could be an issue.
So far, so good. The hematoma seems to have had no effect on the organ we're examining. Let's check its transection. Moving on to the incision.
Yeah.
Holding a knife with a long, narrow blade in your dominant hand, cut the cranial nerves on both sides, pulling the brain towards you.
God, can you imagine if you had to narrate your own actions to yourself all the time? Oh, wrong. This way first. I pressed the wrong button.
Remember, just one small fragment examined under the magnifying glass is enough to dispel or confirm our doubts. We then take the fragment of the brain to the tray and, literally and figuratively, go over it with a fine-tooth comb.
This is how you examine something.
Just as I initially suspected, we can rule the fatal accident out as well.
Okay, give me your trach, dude. Give me your trachea. I want it. There we go.
Same as we did with the stomach. External inspection didn't tell us anything. While cutting a small organ, such as the trachea, we must perform a precise incision. To be able to cut with the very tip of the blade, we must hold the knife as if it was a stylus.
As if it was a... Oh my god. That's a horrifying sound. Just make it stop. Cut. God, why does it sound like I have 1,000 styli?
Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've got it. Based on the report and preliminary documentation, it is safe to assume that the deceased passed out after consumption of alcohol and then fell asleep on his back. Then the gastric contents refluxed and flooded the airways, causing death. That's why we don't forget about the recovery position at dorm parties.
This whole thing has been a PSA about alcohol and dorm parties.
Now it's all clear. The death was caused by suffocation.
Asphyxiation. Darkstar.
It went quite smoothly today. I'm about to get off.
You right here, dude? That's weird.
In order to bring the chest of our deceased back to its initial state, at least to a small extent, we must take the needle in our hand. We sewed the deceased using the baseball stitch technique. This stitching method is very strong and quick to do.
Yeah, watch how quick. I have a phone call.
I should probably get to that.
Probably.
I'm coming.
Let's see who it is.
This is Dr. Jack Hanman. Please leave a message.
Good evening. How are you? How are you? How are you?
What the f is that supposed to be? I'll finish the stitching and I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Okay, lady. Thank you for your message.
What the fuck?
And that is Autopsy Simulator. I had no idea that it was kind of a horror game, which is kind of awesome that it's like, oh yeah, we're just a simulation game. And then bam, cats are stealing your bodies and people are screaming at your answering machine. So yeah, let me know what you think. If maybe I should check this out some more when it comes out. It's not out yet, is it? Or when it comes out. Either way, I might have to check it out more. So yeah, like and subscribe, check out the Discord, check out the Twitch, and I will see you guys in the next demo.